They say the human brain is the most complex object in the known universe. But what if that's not just poetic exaggeration? What if the universe itself, in its infinite complexity, is quietly mirrored inside your skull? When you close your eyes and think, when your neurons flicker in patterns of light and electricity, maybe you're not just processing thoughts. Maybe you're reenacting creation itself on a smaller scale, in a dimension of consciousness that science has barely begun to measure. Look deep enough into the folds of the brain, and you find galaxies made of neurons, filaments of thought connecting clusters of memory like constellations. The same fractal geometry that governs the cosmic web can be traced, in miniature, inside the structure of your own mind. Somewhere between the firing of a synapse and the movement of a star, there exists a symmetry so perfect that it defies coincidence. The universe, it seems, loves to repeat itself. Perhaps the brain is not a container for thought, but a mirror for existence. When a neuron fires, it sends an electrical signal that travels faster than thought itself, a cascade of information lighting up networks like cosmic highways. On the largest scale, galaxies communicate through gravity, bending space-time, pulling one another in an invisible dance that has lasted since the dawn of time. Both the neuron and the galaxy obey the same fundamental language: energy-seeking equilibrium, chaos-finding form, light-chasing darkness. The physicist might call it emergent order, the poet might call it divine symmetry, but both are describing the same truth: that mind and cosmos are reflections of one another, two sides of one endless consciousness trying to understand itself. You are made of the same elements that were forged in stars: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, iron. Every atom in your body was once part of something vast and ancient. The calcium in your bones once drifted as dust through a nebula. The iron in your blood once pulsed in the heart of a dying star. And when that star exploded, scattering its remains across space, it was unknowingly building you. When you think about that, it's hard not to feel that your very thoughts are the continuation of a cosmic story, billions of years in the making. You're not just in the universe. The universe is inside you, looking at itself through your eyes. Scientists once thought consciousness was a byproduct of biology, an accident of evolution. But the deeper we look into quantum systems, the more we find that awareness seems to be woven into the fabric of reality itself. The observer effect shows that observation changes what is observed. When you measure a particle, you collapse its possibilities into a single state. In other words, your act of awareness defines the physical reality you see. Could it be that consciousness is not born from the brain, but that the brain is a receiver, a tuning device for a universal field of awareness? Just as a radio doesn't create the song it plays, perhaps your mind doesn't create thought, but interprets it, resonating with frequencies from beyond space-time. When you dream, your brain generates entire worlds, landscapes, faces, sensations, emotions, all woven seamlessly together, governed by their own physical laws. Within that dream, everything feels real, but when you wake up, those worlds vanish, dissolved into electrical silence. Now imagine that the universe we live in is simply a dream at a higher level, a dream dreamt by consciousness itself. If your brain can generate a universe within, could the universe itself be the brain of something larger? A cosmic consciousness dreaming galaxies, physics, and time into existence? Inside your brain, a thought forms in less than 1,000th of a second, an infinitesimal moment of electrical activity. But within that flicker, infinite patterns arise: memories, images, sensations, awareness. A single spark of thought can birth 1,000 parallel possibilities. Isn't that what the universe does too? A single explosion, the Big Bang, expanding into infinite galaxies, infinite worlds, infinite stories. The brain's thoughts and the universe's expansion are not so different. Both are creative acts. Both are manifestations of energy turning into form, of potential becoming reality. When a physicist looks at the stars, they are also, in some strange way, looking inward. The equations written on their blackboard are the same equations that pulse silently in their neurons. When they describe entropy, energy, or gravity, they are unknowingly describing their own mind. The brain doesn't just understand the universe. It is a model of it, sculpted by the same physical laws, driven by the same relentless need to evolve and organize. The universe creates consciousness, and consciousness, in turn, creates the universe, a feedback loop with no beginning and no end. And maybe that's the real mystery, that you, sitting there thinking about the universe, or the universe thinking about itself. The cosmos built you not just to exist, but to perceive, to reflect, to wonder. Every question you ask sends a ripple back through space and time, altering the story ever so slightly. When you stare into the stars at night, something stares back, not a god or a distant being, but the memory of yourself written into the fabric of space-time. The atoms that make your eyes are the same atoms that once burned in those distant suns. You are, in the most literal sense, made of starlight. And when you dream, when you love, when you question reality, you are continuing the work of creation, one thought at a time. If the universe and the brain are reflections of each other, then every thought you have ripples through the cosmos in ways you cannot see. Imagine a single neuron firing, a burst of energy so small it seems insignificant, yet within that spark, quantum probabilities shift, fields interact, and particles respond. On the largest scale, stars are born from invisible fluctuations, drawn together by the same subtle gravity that once gathered the atoms now forming your brain. The same equations that predict the motion of galaxies also govern the signals that define your consciousness. You are a fractal of existence, a self-aware expression of the laws that built everything. The boundary between what's out there and what's in here doesn't really exist. The brain is not contained by the skull. It extends into reality itself. Each perception is a handshake between mind and matter, between thought and photon, between awareness and the field of existence. Perhaps this is why the more deeply we look into the universe, the more it begins to resemble thought. The cosmic web, those vast filaments of matter connecting galaxies, look strikingly like the structure of neurons and synapses. Both are networks designed to exchange information. Both evolve, adapt, and optimize. A galaxy cluster may be unimaginably large, but it behaves like a single thought in the mind of creation, a flash of awareness spread across billions of light years. Could it be that consciousness is the universe's most natural state? That the universe doesn't just contain consciousness, but is consciousness? Every atom in your brain once participated in cosmic events that predate life itself. They've traveled through stars, nebulae, and comets, gathering information written in the subtle language of physics. So when your brain forms a thought, it is using ancient matter, the same matter that once shaped the first light of the cosmos. The mind is not something new. It's the continuation of a process as old as time. When you meditate, you might feel that the boundaries of yourself begin to blur. The edges between your mind and the world dissolve. Science calls this the default mode network quieting down. But perhaps it's something deeper, the brain returning to its universal origin, merging back with the background hum of reality. In that silence, you are not just a person sitting still. You are space-time experiencing itself without interruption. In that quiet, the separation between the neuron and the galaxy fades, and what's left is pure awareness, timeless, formless, infinite. Every time you lose yourself in awe or music or love, the same thing happens. The local mind dissolves into the universal one. It's as though the cosmos, for a brief moment, remembers itself through you. Some physicists now suspect that consciousness could be a fundamental force, like gravity or electromagnetism, not emerging from matter, but giving matter its ability to exist in coherent form. Theoretical models like the integrated information theory suggest that consciousness scales with complexity, that the more integrated a system's information, the more awareness it possesses. If that's true, then the universe itself, being infinitely complex, would be infinitely aware. Your brain is a microcosmic mirror of that awareness, a local condensation of the universal field. The firing of your neurons is the echo of the Big Bang, slowed down, localized, and given form. The same symmetry that balances galaxies also balances the duality of your thoughts, chaos and order, light and dark, creation and decay. Every emotion, every realization is an echo of cosmic expansion. The universe, in its infinite patience, builds itself again and again through complexity. From quarks to atoms, from atoms to molecules, from molecules to cells, and from cells to thought, it evolves toward self-recognition. Consciousness is not the end result of evolution. It is its purpose. And so, the universe builds brains, billions of them, as mirrors to see itself from different angles. Every mind adds a new layer to the grand reflection. In that sense, you are not one consciousness among many. You are one node in a network of universal awareness, helping the cosmos remember what it is. When you think, the universe thinks. When you love, the universe learns to love itself. And when you question your place within all this, the universe contemplates its own meaning through you. If we could zoom out far enough, past galaxies and time, maybe we would see that everything, every planet, every cell, every atom, is part of one immense mind. A cosmic brain made of energy and possibility, pulsing with awareness. The dark matter connecting galaxies could be its unconscious. The laws of physics could be its neural code. Quantum fields might be the background noise of its thoughts. And in that grand mind, your consciousness would be a single spark, fleeting, but essential, because without that spark, the totality would not be complete. When your mind wanders and dreams, when it creates stories, when it imagines impossible worlds, it's not escaping reality. It's reflecting the creative process that built the universe itself. Imagination is the bridge between microcosm and macrocosm, between neuron and nebula. It is through imagination that the universe evolves, because imagination is how it experiments with itself. Somewhere in the quiet rhythm of your brainwaves, in the oscillations of your alpha and theta states, the same patterns exist that once rippled through primordial space. You are a continuation of that vibration, that original frequency, still resonating, still expanding. And perhaps when we die, when the brain's electrical patterns dissolve, what remains is not lost, but reabsorbed into that universal field of awareness. Like a wave returning to the ocean, the pattern persists, not as an individual, but as a fragment of the infinite. The universe reclaims what it lent, and the story begins again, somewhere else, in another mind, another world, another form. You don't end, you transform. The physicist sits by the dim light of his lamp, his eyes tracing the faint glow that dances along the rim of his notebook. Equations are scattered across the page like constellations, each symbol holding a whisper of the universe's language. He's always believed that science was a way to decode reality, but tonight it feels more like a mirror, one that reflects the same patterns he senses within himself. The deeper he dives into the mathematics of space and time, the more it starts to resemble the architecture of his own thoughts. Each variable feels alive, like a neuron pulsing through the equations of existence. He pauses, realizing that maybe what we call understanding is simply the mind syncing with the cosmos, resonating at the same frequency. The distinction between the observer and the observed begins to blur, until there's only awareness witnessing itself through different forms, one made of neurons, the other made of stars. He remembers the first time he stared into a telescope and felt his heart shift. The spiral of a distant galaxy looked eerily familiar, its arms curling like the ridges of the human brain. The symmetry was undeniable. Billions of light years apart, yet they followed the same blueprint. It struck him then that maybe the universe isn't random at all, but recursive, repeating itself across scales, folding infinity into form after form. If galaxies and neurons share a design, then perhaps consciousness isn't limited to biology. Perhaps it's a fundamental feature of existence, coded into the geometry of reality itself. Each synapse, each connection, might just be the cosmos learning to think, to reflect, to dream. He closes his eyes and imagines the Milky Way as a colossal brain, firing bursts of starlight across its arms, each pulse a thought, each supernova a revelation. He wonders what the universe dreams about. Does it think of the lives it carries, the civilizations flickering like neurons across its vast expanse? Or is it dreaming of itself, endlessly folding and unfolding, trying to understand what it means to exist? Maybe that's what consciousness is, the universe's way of feeling its own creation. And if that's true, then every mind, every thought, every moment of awareness contributes to that grand dream. The physicist realizes that his own curiosity, his relentless questioning, isn't separate from the universe's expansion. It is the expansion expressed locally through him. Every question is an act of creation. Every idea another ripple in the infinite sea of thought that binds all things. He recalls a paper he once read about quantum entanglement, how two particles, once connected, remain linked across any distance. What happens to one affects the other, instantly, as if space itself doesn't exist between them. It's a mystery that challenges everything we know about causality. But what if entanglement isn't just a property of particles? What if it's the underlying fabric of consciousness itself? Maybe every mind is entangled with every other, not metaphorically but physically. Across the vast distances of space, connections persist. The universe may be a single organism, its awareness distributed across stars, life forms, and dimensions we cannot yet perceive. The physicist smiles faintly at the thought. Perhaps empathy, intuition, even déjà vu, are remnants of that ancient entanglement. The cosmos remembering itself through the fragments it has scattered into form. As he contemplates this, the candle beside him flickers again, casting shadows that dance like thoughts against the wall. The rhythm feels familiar, like the slow oscillation of a brainwave drifting between consciousness and sleep. He imagines that if one could zoom in close enough, the patterns of that flame would mirror the oscillations of his own neurons, both governed by thermodynamics, both burning energy into light. He writes a single line in his notebook. Energy becomes awareness when it learns to see itself. The words feel both scientific and sacred. He doesn't know where the line came from. It feels like something the universe whispered through him, not to him. And maybe that's the point. Thought is not generated by the brain. It flows through it, the way wind moves through a forest, giving shape to silence. He leans back, looking toward the ceiling, tracing invisible constellations above him. Each dot of light he imagines corresponds to an idea, a connection, a spark. Slowly, he begins to see them linking together. Thoughts forming galaxies, insights orbiting around questions, patterns spiraling toward meaning. It feels infinite, and yet deeply intimate, as if the same intelligence that shaped the stars is shaping his understanding right now. He wonders if the universe needs minds like his, small, finite containers through which infinity can experience limitation, so that it might learn contrast, depth, and self-awareness. Without limits, there can be no perspective. Without perspective, no wonder. Maybe that's why we exist. To give the universe eyes that can look back at itself and whisper, "I see you." Outside, the night sky hums with quiet radiance. He steps to the window, watching as clouds drift across the moon's face, their edges glowing faintly with scattered light. He thinks about how the photons touching his retina right now may have traveled for millions of years before meeting his gaze. They've crossed time and space just to be absorbed into his mind, turned into thought, memory, meaning. In that moment, he feels a strange kinship with those photons. Both are expressions of the same process, energy evolving toward awareness. Perhaps every photon, every atom, carries within it the blueprint of consciousness, waiting to awaken when conditions allow. The physicist whispers to himself, "The universe is awake wherever awareness arises." He returns to his desk, pen hovering above paper, and writes equations that merge physics with philosophy. Entropy and emotion, quantum states and self-reflection. Each variable is a metaphor, each symbol an act of devotion. The lines blur until science becomes poetry, and poetry becomes science. He realizes that understanding doesn't always come from logic. Sometimes it comes from resonance. The truth isn't something you calculate. It's something you feel vibrating through you. In that sense, knowledge is not accumulation. It's remembrance. The physicist stops writing and lets the silence speak for a while. He thinks of the human brain again. 86 billion neurons connected by 100 trillion synapses. A network so vast it mirrors the known universe. He wonders if every person is a tiny version of the cosmos. Each mind a galaxy of possibilities, and that maybe, when two minds connect, in love, in empathy, in shared understanding, two galaxies momentarily merge. That's what makes connection sacred. It is the physical act of the universe uniting its fragments. He breathes deeply, feeling that unity within himself. The boundaries between his skin and the air feel less solid, more fluid, as though the space around him has become alive with presence. For the first time, he doesn't just understand the idea that the universe lives inside the brain. He feels it,